There has been strong anger and concern in Ennistymon following Clare County Council's decision to proceed with the removal of mature, decades-old trees in the town square as part of ongoing public realm regeneration works. The felling of the first tree recently prompted immediate reaction from local residents who are now urging the council to pause the works and reconsider the layout to preserve the remaining trees. Campaigners say they aren't opposed to the regeneration of the square, but believe the existing trees could be retained with only minor design adjustments. For more on this, I'm joined on the line by concerned local Maeve Stone. Maeve, good morning to you.
Hi Alan, how are you?
Very well. It sounds like you, though, and others in Ennistymon not as well, and upset, to say the least, over what's been happening. So can you describe for us more on what's happened in Ennistymon recently and why it's caused such a strong reaction locally?
Yeah, I think it's interesting listening to Pierce before the break there. I think in a way this feels like a small issue, but I think that it's a symptom of a bigger problem around how we think about urban nature, and I think that's one of the systems that we need to redesign for a better future for us all. But yes, as you mentioned, the public realm works began, I think it was 2 weeks ago now, and one of the trees on the square was removed immediately, and it's just kind of shocking because they've been there for decades, and for some of the young people that would be walking through the town on a daily basis, they've never not been there. And I think that actually is kind of a profound loss at a personal level, and for anybody who actually lives in the town above the shops, not having that in your landscape is another big loss. And also, I guess for me personally, just thinking about the logic behind this, I understand that there's design processes within the council and things go through a process. But these are like 20 to 30-year-old trees, and they have a measurable value to the surrounding property as well. Because there's been studies internationally that show that mature trees in an urban context actually add 5 to 15% more to the value of properties that they're planted beside. So there's a value impact to properties in the town. There's an aesthetic impact. There's an ecological impact. And when you cut down a tree that's that age and plant a sapling, you're not replacing it, you're starting again. You know, you're erasing all of the value that's been accrued over a long time. So,
and Maeve, you and others are, annoyed that the trees are being felled, but is part of the upset that you were surprised, you weren't aware? Do you believe there's been enough consultation with the community on this particular aspect of the project?
Well, I think that there was consultation on the design, but it wasn't immediately evident actually that the mature trees were going to be removed in order to finish the design. There is a plan to put in planter boxes with, I think, birch saplings. And there's also an argument from the council that the trees that are there aren't in good condition, which is correct. They are in distress. If you look at the trees, you can see they're not growing leaves on all of the branches, and that is a really clear indication that they are in distress. And for me, the broken thinking here is that instead of looking at the problem and finding a solution for these mature trees in distress, the solution is to remove them. And I think, there's just a shift in value and a shift in thinking that would protect trees in the future for this kind of planning process. And I would hope that the response from the community for the council has really indicated to them that, a presumption in the future that we are in favour of retaining whatever is established in the nature locally wherever possible. And when it's not possible to retain it, that the first kind of thing that you would look to do is to move them, not to cut them down. And, that there's kind of a huge value in a tree that's been growing and costing us nothing for decades.
So when adjustments are mentioned by you and other concerned locals, is that what you mean by an adjustment to actually move the trees?
Well, I mean, the preference I would have is that the council, working with the architect who designed it, but also an ecologist, and we're really lucky in Ennistymon to have an incredible organisation called Home Tree who have foresters working locally, somebody that can come in, look at the root system and say, okay, remediation looks like this. These are the steps you need to take to protect this tree, to make it healthy, happy, and a tree that's going to be there for decades to come.
Yeah, have you or any other campaigners sought clarification though from the local authority about why the trees needed to be removed as part of the project, and what response, if any, have you received? If you did receive a response, did it touch on the fact that the trees are distressed and they felt that they needed to be removed for that reason, or?
So the response that one of the other women who's involved in sort of looking for more clarification came from Councillor Shane Talty, who I think had been in conversation with Helena Neil. Sorry, I butchered her name there. I apologise. And the answer that we got to our questions was that they're in poor condition, and so that's why they need to come down. But that they're replacing them with these four birch trees in wide beds, so that they'll be able to grow there. But I think, I guess for me it's just kind of the joined up thinking of, if you're going to create a public realm design that involves adding trees, I'm all for it. But where it stops making sense is where you remove established trees that are older than a portion of the entire population of this town, and use that as a moment to sort of replant or put in I guess I want to feel certain and sure that the same thing isn't going to happen again in 10 years.
I can understand yours and others' perspective. I suppose the council, though, they'd say the trees are in poor condition, they are replacing them, they weren't going to get any better, they're replacing them with other trees. And I suppose at this point, Maeve, has the project reached a point where any changes you call for are unlikely to happen if they're already felling and removing these trees?
I think that is possibly true. I think that the decision, there was a meeting last week, and I think that the decision didn't move forward in the way that we were hoping. But I guess the point I'm trying to make, Alan, is that I don't agree that deciding a tree is in poor condition is a reason to fell it. I think if a tree is in distress and in poor condition, the response from the council should be to look at the necessary steps to improve the conditions for that tree, rather than seeing it as something that can be easily replaced, because it can't. It'll take another 20 years before any of the saplings that are planted are doing the same work for us, be it ecologically in removing carbon or providing food or habitat for local nature, or can it be covered? There's aesthetics as well, like in a town like Ennistymon, which has such a huge turnover in terms of tourism. I just think it's a bit short-sighted, and I think that there is adaptations that could be made that would make the most of the nature that's already established and working for us.
Okay, we do have to leave it there, but Maeve, appreciate you joining us to fill us in on this. Thank you very much.
Thanks a million.
That's Maeve Stone, concerned local there in Ennistymon.